Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I can't remember exactly what I saw because I was a little kid, but to this day my parents swear I said this. Me. Early 2000s. Around 7 or 8 years old. At the back seat while my dad drives and my mom at the front seat. Coming back from some random family party. Around 1 a.m. on a dark empty country road. My parents are chatting about random stuff. Just looking through the window. Mom, who is she?
What?
That lady that was in the middle of the road. Silence. MP3.
It was Virgin Mary, son.
No, Mom, she was so ugly and creepy. Longer silence. WV. They became silent until we got home. They say they were scared shitless. There was no one on the road. None of them saw anything. To this day, I don't know what the hell I saw. They don't know what the hell I saw. I just know that since this event I love dark road trips. It evokes a feeling of mystery and the sensation of being observed. Let's discuss this topic and post our stories anons.
My wife and I live out of my truck. Life is sweet. In West Virginia, quiet zone camping. Beautiful, gorgeous mountain views, rainbows, the works. Late summer was pretty hot that night. Decide we don't want to cook and want to check out a town nearby for burgers and beers. Head out around 9:30 p.m. Pitch black out apart from what my headlights light up, winding country roads. Have a CB radio and a camera mounted on my dashboard. Reach a long stretch of road that has abandoned houses on the left side. CB flicks on and makes weird super mechanical sounds. Dash cam flicks off. Radio screen cuts off. What.jpg? Wife gasps and points in front of us. See huge black shape, roughly humanoid looking, maybe 6.5 to 7 feet tall on the left side of the double yellow road. Completely black, not see-through, vaguely cloudy. Turns toward us as I slam on the brakes. Hear all our shit fly everywhere in the back. The shadow drops down real low to the pavement. Crawls slinks off the road, kind of like how General Grievous walks on all appendages. Disappears out of line of sight behind a bush. CB stops screeching, everything is silent. Hear a deep growl from near where the shadow thing crawled away to. Floor it. Get another mile or so down the road before the dashcam and truck radio screen turn back on. My wife and I slept in town that night. The next day I checked the dash cam. Camera records in 3-minute chunks, memory card full of clips. Just the last 3 minutes of our ride is captured and repeated 50 times, no other clips saved. Dashcam hasn't worked right since.
Be me. I just turned 18. Finally got a car and license, feels good, man. I decided to go on a road trip with 2 of my best friends. Our plan was to travel to the mountain woods around 4 hours away from where we live, smoke weed and chill. It proceeds to get darker. We enjoy talking and listening to some music on the radio. The radio loses connection. On That's Weird.jpg. We decided to just enjoy some talking. My friend in the backseat falls asleep. Me and my friend in the front seats just drive in silence. We get near the woods. My friend gets really scared all of a sudden. Hey bro, are you okay?
I have a really bad feeling about this.
I just tell him to stop being a coward and chill out. Our fuel is really low. We stopped on a sideway in the woods and I asked my friend to help me tank the car. My friend and I got out of the car. I take the fuel out of the trunk.
Justin, what are you doing?
The friend who was asleep literally a minute ago is standing in the middle of the street not moving at all. We didn't even see him leave the car. Maybe he just wants to take a piss. I feel this horrible sense of dread and the feeling that we need to get out of there immediately. I decide to ignore it and finish fueling the car and put the fuel in the tank. My friend walks up the road to Justin. Justin doesn't move an inch. Friend is around 2 meters away from him and suddenly turns around and runs to the car.
We need to go.
What do you mean .jpg? Why? We can't leave Justin there.
That's not Justin.
I turn around and Justin is still asleep in the back of the car. Oh no. .jpg. I start the car and start turning the other way around. I look in the side mirror. The Justin on the road is turned around face to us now. His proportions are really off and he has this horrible smile on him that still makes me terrified when I think of it. We wake up the real Justin and tell him we're going back home.
Guys, what the hell, why?
We tell him the story. He doesn't believe us at all until this day thinks we're lying. My friend and the other friend have not talked about this event at all since. But I know he remembers it too.
I was a long-range truck driver for nearly 5 years. My first year solo, I'm driving a load from Delaware to Alabama. Hit my break period and have to stop at a truck stop to rest for 30 minutes. Go in to use the bathroom and get some coffee. Start talking to another trucker. Be careful out there, anon, this weather is seriously looking like a tornado and it's tornado season down here. Complete my break time and get back down the road. As soon as I'm back on the road to my stop, I notice the wild amount of downed trees and screwed up buildings. Likely missed being right in the range of a tornado by minutes tops. Scary shit.
Nothing as crazy as everyone else, but at least you know my story is real. Driving down a heavily wooded back road coming back from a climbing trip with a good friend. Just chatting and having a good time as usual. Windows fully down, music blasting. Cruising at 90+ miles per hour since no one is around. All of a sudden my friend turns down the music for no reason. Slows down and pulls off to the side of the road. Ask him what's up.
I thought I saw someone I knew back there.
I ask him what the hell he means. He looks distant and doesn't really respond. Ask him again, WTF is his deal. He turns to me and his face is pure white and says I feel strange. Has a massive seizure on the spot. No idea what to do, freaking out. Eventually passes and my friend recovers enough that we can talk and he lets me drive him to the hospital. Ask him about it later and he says he doesn't remember seeing anyone, saying he saw anyone, or even stopping the car. If he didn't stop we would have died for sure, slamming into a tree at 90+ miles per hour. Wonder who or what he thought he saw to this day that made him stop. Another story that didn't happen to me, but happened to a friend that this story reminded me of. Friend coming back from slacklining. Sitting in the passenger seat with them driving. They both see a badly crashed, flipped over car on the side of the road. Of course on a road that doesn't see much traffic because of slacklining. There's a man standing next to the flipped over car. He looks beat up and bloody and he is hitchhiking. Friend doesn't want to pick him up, but M is driving and it's his car and he wants to help the guy out. They pull over and the guy gets in the back. Ask him some general questions, mainly if he's hurt and needs to go to the hospital. Adamantly denies that he's hurt and says he doesn't need the hospital. They lightly argue about it for a little while before the man simply asks them to take him to 7-Eleven so he can get a new phone and make a phone call. Reluctantly agree. Say he doesn't talk much the rest of the ride. Drop him off at 7-Eleven. A few weeks later, a friend is chilling at home and the police come knocking on his door. Show him a picture of the hitchhiker he picked up. A friend says that he and him picked the guy up and took him to 7-Eleven. The cops say the man is now on trial for killing his pregnant wife and he and M have to appear in court to give testimony. Apparently the guy killed his wife, got behind the wheel drunk, crashed his car, and then my friend and M picked him up. Literally picked up a hitchhiking murderer. Ironically said he was nice enough but quiet.
Had this weird bit happen a few years ago. Involved a girl I dated and we went out for the summer. Some other weird stuff happened when we were traveling, but this was certain the weirdest and felt paranormal. Be me. Not finding anyone to date in 2014. Find cutie pie when hanging out with relatives one weekend. She's a black girl, a little round but not a land whale. She came from a super religious family and often dressed very conservatively, but knew her way around Vidya like nobody's business. We started dating a few times. Good times. JPG. June rolls around, told her one day that I want to go on a road trip with my paid vacation. She likes this, and agrees to go. We load up a shitty Taurus with some luggage and head off down the road. We decided to go up to New York City to visit an extended family member of mine. Enter Pennsylvania on the interstate, it's about 3 a.m. Stop at the rest area because your girlfriend needs to go to the bathroom. There are truckers sleeping in their trucks but nobody parked in front of the actual rest area. Decided to go take piss myself. Enter an eerie and empty bathroom. Doing thing at the stall and I hear toilet flush in a stall. WTF. I want to look but need to pee because 100 miles between rest areas. Toilet next to it flushes. Screw that. .exe. get done and stride over to see what's triggering them. All toilets are manual, hand-flushed toilets. Not automatic. Realize something is extremely creepy now. Wash hands because you don't want germs, bolt out. Wait in the rest area lobby despite hot weather and bugs. I wanted to go to the car, and probably should've. I need to clarify this small bit for clarification, and am not greentexting this bit. My girlfriend decided to wear a tent of a denim overalls dress for this trip. It had the whole top like an overalls, went about mid-calf and could spread really wide if she held the skirt out. She had a lime green t-shirt, sneakers, and a white net petticoat thing to make the dress stick out, kind of like a retro look. I know I probably went into too much detail, but I need to get that laid out. Bathroom door to the men's room slams open. Girlfriend comes out. Shocked, start to go over and ask what the hell. Makes a beeline to the door and walks out, as if I didn't exist. I start to go after her when I realize something is off and not right. Girlfriend has yanked up the back of her dress, and is tugging at her gray panties as if she got a wedgie. Her petticoat is nowhere to be seen. Drops dress and walks over to the car, tries the door. When it doesn't open, try all the doors. Frozen in fear, not sure what to do. I'm suddenly realizing this isn't my girlfriend. Hear a yelp from the ladies' bathroom, and hear this low thundering of water. Door bursts open and my GF is there looking panicked. Forget about things in the car, looking at her in disbelief. I think she realized something was wrong, quickly grabbing my hand and starting to lead me outside. I finally get my mind in gear and look back at the car. The girlfriend copycat is nowhere in sight. We quickly walked towards the car. I ask her what's wrong, she cuts me off and tells me she'll tell me when we're on the road. Get in the car, start up. As we start to drive away, girlfriend screams and tells me to book it. I want to ask her WTF is she on, but I barely miss that my headlights pass onto a figure on the side of the embankment of the ramp. It looks like my girlfriend, but there is no face. It starts to bolt towards the car. I gun the engine and we rocket onto the interstate. As we finally calm down, the girlfriend collects her marbles and tells me toilets were randomly flushing. I tell her about the copycat I had seen come out of the men's room. She is utterly confused and embarrassed. Girlfriend may be sexy, but doesn't do upskirts in public. Assures me she's the real one. Flashes me heaven, shows she has a petticoat and orange panties. Impressed I didn't fall for her fake. Don't know what the heck that was, never saw anything like that again. I'll post the others as they come along. I have the day off tonight and just reminiscing about her I guess. That road trip was one of the best times we've ever had together, but those few unnerving things stuck out some. This part 1 won't green text, and it threw me off for a second before I realized what was going on. The door to the men's bathroom door slams open, and my girlfriend comes out. This immediately caught guard as I had just come from there, and knew my girlfriend was in the ladies' room. My mind hadn't quite processed what had happened.
Got one where nothing really happened, but I got spooked nonetheless. Once drove across the entire state of Texas. I'm based out of Louisiana, so I was driving west en route to El Paso. This drive was for work, so I was taking a delivery truck with cargo space, meaning I couldn't see the back of it. After a full day's drive, the sun begins to set. I'm somewhere in West Texas and it's getting dark. Feel the truck kinda buckle and bounce almost like I hit a bad dip in the road. I never saw a dip and I'm worried the truck might have an issue, so I pulled over. By this point the sun has set, but it's a full moon. Check the truck, the tires, the cargo space. Everything looks good. Then I don't know why I decide to look on top of the actual truck. Peek my head over. Instantly hit with a prickly feeling all over my arms and neck. There's nothing on the truck, of course. But I get this feeling like something is staring right back at me. I don't know how else to explain it, the weirdest thing I ever felt. I actually flinched like when you walk around a corner and almost run into someone, nearly fell off the damn truck. Quickly book it back inside the truck. Lock the doors. Sit there for a minute almost like I was expecting to hear something. Never did. Started the truck and took off. Drove throughout the rest of the night without incident. Story I heard my uncle tell once. Uncle's girlfriend moves up to Massachusetts. He's from Louisiana. He drives up to see her one week. On the final night he decides to keep driving after dark, figuring he can make it before midnight. Lonely stretch of road. This is the part that always gives me chills when he tells it. There's no one on the road when he glances into the rearview mirror and sees someone sitting there. Rear passenger side. The person suddenly lights up as though there are headlights bearing down on my uncle, like he's about to get into a head-on collision. Uncle swerves his truck and nearly goes skidding off the road but manages to stay on the highway. Skids to a stop as he realizes there are no other cars around. The highway is dead silent for a moment. Then he hears the sound of glass breaking. Finds the back passenger window where he saw the person shattered to shit.
So I just got back from a road trip across the country and had some weird things occur to me along the way. The first paranormal thing I had happened, oddly enough, was in Roswell, New Mexico while doing work exchange. Well, I was out in the desert staying at this place where an older cowboy-looking guy hosted couch surfers and workaways, and everything was cool the first night I got there. He showed me my room and I chilled and went to bed. The next morning I got up and walked out to have a smoke on the porch, and dude was sitting outside drinking coffee and smoking L, so I grabbed a chair to do the same. After that I decided to go make breakfast and get out of that conversation as fast as possible. This is when the odd shit started. I walked into the bathroom to piss, and when I was leaving I noticed a face on the door and it was really surreal looking, so then started paying attention. I walk into the room I'm staying in and the pillow out of nowhere just rolls from the back of the bed to the front. I stare at it. Try to rationalize it, then I just laugh. Then I sit down and load Netflix on my tablet and immediately hear a voice say, "What are you going to do, sit in bed all day? You can't do that." And I got up as fast as I could to see if the dude was by my door talking or something, and then I looked and he was all the way across the house where I left him outside with the doors and windows shut smoking a cigarette still. So then I just go back to my room and sit down and try to comprehend what just happened, and that still doesn't make sense to me because I heard the voice like it was just right there with me. I decided immediately that it was my spirit guides telling me that I need to get out of there, so right as he went to the post office I packed my things up and headed out back on the road. My story, all real. So I spent the summer in Hawaii doing a work exchange program, and ever since I got there a lot of weird shit started happening to me. Mostly synchronistic things and the feeling of having a spiritual awakening type thing going on. I thought that whenever I left the island that things would kind of go back to normal, but the synchronicity never ceased up. After Hawaii I went to California and spent the last of my money buying a cheap car so I could road trip back home to the other side of the country. The whole road trip was pretty flawless with the exception of the weird shit said by the guy in New Mexico. After the thing in New Mexico I went straight to Texas the same day and stayed at one of my buddy's sister's house in Dallas, and then the next day I went to Richmond, Texas and stayed for 3 days with my friend from back home. The day before I was leaving I said that I wanted to go to Florida and visit my uncle, and I messaged him and he hadn't been messaging me back, and then I find out the same day I message him he had a stroke, so I end up going to Florida instead of going back home, and I spent a couple weeks there house sitting until he got out of the hospital. I started having more odd synchronicity there in Florida with conversations I would have with my uncle and friends and King of the Hill of all things for some reason. I'm going to post comments with the synchronicity shortly after this. It's messed up. After he got out of the hospital we started hanging out and he started back into his old routine of going to the bar and doing cocaine and shit. I could see that it was really screwed his life up since I was observing it from the outside, and I really don't have much of a relationship with him aside from a few encounters when we were younger. But the really weird shit started happening with me and my uncle whenever I started burning sage and asking my spirit guides to help. That's when shit started getting funky. So when I first got to Florida I decided to look up cool shops around the area, and I found this gem store that's got all kinds of things like incense, salt lamps, tarot cards. That's where I found my first bundle of sage that I ever purchased. I immediately went back to my uncle's house and did a cleansing ceremony on the whole place, then went and visited him in the hospital and burned it for him while we were outside. That night after I returned home was when the synchronicity involving King of the Hill started occurring. So I put in a random disc and start the episode while I'm writing some lyrics down. The episode that starts is one where they are having a barbecue outside in Texas and it starts snowing and everyone starts freaking out. At the same time my friend in Texas, where I just left from, sends me a Snapchat of him outside Richmond driving in the snow, saying these Texans are gonna know what hit them with all this snow. And I look up on the screen and it's playing the same exact thing that he's saying basically. Then the next day I had a conversation with my uncle about how one time he walked by a photograph of himself and didn't realize who was in the picture because he had grown older, and it kind of induced an existential crisis with him. Same night I go home, pop in an episode of King of the Hill, and Peggy walks by a photograph of herself and stops and says, "Who is that?" and freaks out because she doesn't recognize herself. Night after that I'm writing lyrics on the couch, and the lyrics I write down are seen when I dance in my head. It's by the graves with the dead. We burn sage for sleeping in and sing songs for the rest, and right as I finish the last word I hear Hank Hill's boss in the background say, "Dang it Hank, I bet you're gonna go dance by my grave when I'm dead with the rest of them." The other one was I was having a conversation with one of my friends about spirit guides and how whenever you have bad karma your spirit guides will do something to alter your path to make you have to balance out your karma. It may seem like a bad thing at the time, but it's actually a good thing. After that conversation I put in another random disc of King of the Hill and started up, and the episode is about Buckley and Leanne and how Buckley is Leanne's guardian angel. In the episode she's talking to Buckley's angel in her car, and it ends up making her have a wreck, and the accident causes her to miss her test at school. But it ends up being for the good because she made some girls that are going to community college, and it inspires her to go there herself instead of beauty college. The next one involves something that I've been talking about for quite a while. I have a theory that dogs are manifestations of your subconscious and your spirit. Whenever you take on a dog you become part of it and it becomes part of you. On the third night of me being in Florida I had a conversation about that with my uncle because I think that my dogs really reflect me, and whenever we go home that night I pop in another random disc of King of the Hill, and the first episode that comes on is about Hank and his dog Lady Bird, and the episode involves Hank taking her to the vet to see if she's pregnant and finding out that she can't have puppies because she has a narrow urethra just like Hank does, meaning that she is an exact reflection of her owner. The next day after all of that shit I take my uncle to the bar again for the third night in a row, and he does the same shit that he's been doing every night, which involves buying cocaine and drinking mass amounts of alcohol. And every night we've been doing the same thing. I'll take him to the bar and then go to the local bookstore and read some shit for free. Tonight I decided to go home and do a sage ceremony in his house because it just felt like I needed to do it. On the way to my uncle's house to do the sage ceremony I was in my car and I lit the bundle of sage, and right as I lit it the Nako song I was listening to said, "We burn our sage," and I laugh out loud because I'm lighting the bundle as it happens, and then I look up and on the building to my left there's a sign lit up that says Sage Biscuits, and then I said WTF. Super weird timing. Anyway, I got to my uncle's and I asked the spirits to present my uncle with an opportunity to confront his demons and get on the correct path. I do this for about 10 minutes inside of his house, and then I head back to the bookstore for a little bit. While I'm at the bookstore I find this book that says Idiot's Guide for Akashic Records, and I flip through for a minute until I land on the page that mentions something about karma. And then I see on the page that it mentions something about Christmas, which is super weird because nothing else in the book does, and the time was 2 days before Christmas. And I thought it had a lot of relevance, so I sent it to my uncle who is at the bar. After that I head back to the bar to wait for him outside, and I ended up getting a call from his friend that I need to come in because some guys inside were upsetting him. I end up going inside and getting him to come out and smoke a cigarette in front of the bar. And this guy comes out again, named James, in a blue car dealer shirt, and me and James have a short conversation about why I am in Florida and a couple other things, and I just got a really bad vibe from him immediately and decided to walk away back to my car because my uncle is fine at this point. Whenever I get back to the car my uncle in the Manners Loan outside, and the guy says to him, "Hey, do you have any coke on you?" And my uncle said that he just had enough for himself. The guy kept going on about how they should do it, and my uncle insisted that he only had enough and that he was trying to quit. And right when he said that he was trying to quit the guy said, "Well look man, your boy left you, it's just us out here. We ought to just go in the back and do this shit. No one's around. Your boy left you." And then he proceeds to pull out the full 8-ball of cocaine and say, "Come on man, let's just go run through this shit." My uncle starts getting upset and saying, "My boy didn't leave me, my boy didn't leave me," and I hear him from the parking lot and yell his name. He comes over to my car and gets in, and the first thing I say to him is that I really just don't like that James guy. And then he proceeds to tell me the story about the cocaine. After that I said that I thought James was the devil, and I explained the sage ceremony that I did at his house, and he was kind of understanding about what we thought was going on. So we decide to go home, and he finishes his little baggie off, and we stay up till 4 a.m. talking about all kinds of shit. And I explained what I thought the passage in the book meant to me. And to me it means that whenever you take a step genuine forward, your past karma is immediately released and you have to stick with it. We go to sleep and wake up 4 hours later to a call from his dog sitter, who has had his dog since he got put in the hospital. She says that something happened with the dog this morning, and I just woke up sick, and added been doing really well up until today. So they bring the dog over and I carry it in the house in a blanket. It's a pretty big lab dog. It immediately walks over to my clothes and lays down on them, and my uncle says, "Sage really likes your clothes. He must smell your dog's." And I look at him and say, "What do you mean your dog's name is Sage?" And I stop to think a little bit about all the shit that happened the night before, and then decide that I need to burn some sage for his dog to try to make it feel better. So I get my bundle out in the light, and then I go over to the dog and I pet it and blow the sage at it and tell it that I hope it feels better and that it's all right to go. And the dog lifts its nose up for the first time since it got home and takes a big whiff of the sage in and looks up my uncle and puts its tongue out like it's giving a kiss, and then stands up and stumbles over to him and he pets him on the side. Then the dog walks into the bedroom and lays down and dies of a stroke. Within 10 minutes of being back. Wrapping back around to what I said with the king of the hill, dogs being manifestations of you and your subconscious. After the dog passed away, we just hung out at the house for a while, and then he decided that he didn't want to bury the dog, but rather he wanted to put it in the ocean and send it off and water. So we pack it up in my car and head to the ocean, and we find a good spot ere the tide will take him out and push him out into the water a little bit. While I was pushing him out, I had a bundle of sage burning for Sage the dog, and I was saying that I hope that he has a great life and other sorts of nice things. And right when I walked away from the body, literally 50 fish out of nowhere just started hopping out of the water one by one, and they didn't stop until the sun was down. And behind the fish were birds crowing and cackling. Whenever we got there, the water was calm and there were no noises around. My uncle decided that the animals knew that Sage was with them now. That same night my uncle gets sad again and decides that he wants to go to the bar, so I take him and he does the same shit over again. But tonight we got back to the house, and for some reason the keys to the front door stopped working. The deadbolt and the bottom lock. It's kind of funny to me because I have been there for 3 weeks up until this point, using them every single day and never had a problem with them. My uncle's determination was that Sage was mad because he repeated his actions again and that he was pushing him out of the house. Because my uncle's position right now is taking care of my grandparents back home. And he was avoiding it by living his life down there in Florida, only serving himself. This newfound clarity was found after everything that happened for him.
Mississippi Delta. I'm visiting family in the Delta right now. What a coincidence. I don't have much to share, but all of my experiences were actually while driving in the Delta, so I'll share a bit. Been on the road most of the day. Around 3 a.m. Driving on the highway through a small town. Nothing but nowhere, i.e. the Delta, up ahead. Barely seen any cars for the last couple of hours. Color me surprised when a semi passes me. Something is in the flatbed. It's covered with some sort of tarp, but I can immediately tell that it's unusual. Round, stubby, made of some sort of metal. It looks like a small flying saucer. Wonder if it isn't a movie prop before remembering I'm driving through the middle of nowhere. The semi-truck was gone just as soon as it came. The rest of the drive was uneventful. There's some farmland in the direction the truck was heading, so it's very possible that they were driving a prop for some show or movie. At the time, though, I was thoroughly confused and half anticipated a Men in Black situation the next morning. Besides that situation, I've seen occasional large shadows either in the road or off the side of the road, like 8 or 9 feet humanoid figures that disappear as I approach them. Those always appear in a specific spot right next to a woodsy area. Nothing to write home about, but I figured it could help get the thread moving.
Last summer. Road trip around Idaho. Party of 6 friends. Get to the campsite. All is well. Night 3, go for a walk. Walking down the road, no lights. 2 miles from the campsite along a wooded road. Shooting the shit, talking about the paranormal. We agree that if an alien is going to abduct us, we should focus our thoughts on a familiar being so we can collectively recognize a shapeshifter. We agree on Elvis. Our group thins out across 150 yards. Everyone gets quiet. Can't see each other. Without mentioning it, we all regroup and veer off into the woods down a forest trail. We arrive back at our campsite and everyone goes to bed without speaking. I assumed everyone was tired and get ready for bed. My bro is sitting on the bench in a stupor and is convinced we switched timelines. I have to get him to chill out and sleep. Start thinking about it. I never saw Elvis, so I should be fine. He couldn't remember what happened that night. Wonder if he saw Elvis when we separated. Did his memory get messed with? Elvis was on my mind for the next couple weeks and I couldn't shake it.
Driving through the forests of eastern Oregon with my girlfriend, maybe 11 or 12 p.m. Clear night, no clouds and a full moon. Late October, so pretty cold and windy. Full night drive mode, great music playing, we're talking, having a great time. Decide to stop at a lookout point and take in the view. Get out of the car and walk maybe 300 to 400 feet to the edge of the cliff/ridge. As soon as we get there, the car alarm goes off. I don't think much of it and turn it off, maybe wind will set it off. 5 minutes later, the car alarm goes off again. This time we're a little confused and go back to the car. Inspect around, find nothing. Take the gun out of the glove box just in case and go back to lookout. Nothing much happens for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Then the car alarm goes off again. Now I'm concerned, plus my girlfriend wants to leave. On the way back to the car, I realize it's gone totally silent. Like completely, eerily, utterly quiet. No crickets or wind or trees or anything at all. Really alarmed by now. Tell GF to stay in the car and lock the door. Spend the next 5 minutes searching the immediate area with my gun drawn and flashlight in hand. The only thing I found was the long rotten skeleton of some prey animal and a small pile of rocks next to it. Never found out what set off the alarm or what the silence was. Maybe not the strangest experience, but I still wonder about it to this day.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.